Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of the Where in the World podcast found on whereintheworldismatt.com, YouTube, and on Facebook. I'm Matt, and thank you so much for once again joining me for another installment of this wonderful travel podcast where we talk about just a lot of different topics in regards to travel and traveling things. Um, in the past, I have interviewed various individuals who have quite the extensive background in traveling, talked to them about, some of their experiences abroad in the United States, covering a lot of different topics. And today I'm super excited because this is going to be the first episode within my series where it's just me. I'm not interviewing one, I'm just talking directly with you guys, the listeners, hoping to get a really fun conversation started. And I'm excited because this is going to challenge me to be the primary person talking. In the past, I've always been the one proposing questions, kind of challenging the individuals that I am interviewing, and now I get to be the one front and center talking with you all. So I'm super excited about that. So, this time, like I said, it's just me, and we're going to be talking about a couple of different travel things. But before we get to that, I want to give you guys some updates. I love updating you all on my life and the things that are going on. And also, apologies for my voice being a little raspy. I just spent the last about 5 days in the capital city, Yerevan. It was a really fun, crazy time. A lot of work going on. So I'm not sick. So don't worry, I'm not sick. But definitely lost my voice a little bit. So please bear with me, and I hope it's not too bad to listen to. But as far as updates, I've talked a lot about the dance school, if you guys have listened in the past, that I work with here in my community in Armenia. And I am finally so excited to let all of you know that we have officially been approved. My grant concept form, all of that has been approved. Funding has been signed, and now we're just waiting for that money to hit our bank account and we can start implementing this project. So, just a little bit of a recap for those of you who have listened or for those of you who don't even know what I'm talking about. My primary assignment over here in Armenia with the Peace Corps is working with my community performing arts school, and I teach dance a couple days a week. I teach more American style hip hop, and I say American style because the hip hop here, if you saw it, is very structured. It's definitely, you can see like the connections of like the structure of dance in their form of hip hop to all of their traditional dances, because there's not a lot of our movement. Everything is very planned out, where hip hop in our culture is more free flowing. You just let it go and kind of go with the music. So that's my first style of dance I'm teaching is hip hop, and the second one is tap dance. Those who know me, tapping is such an important part of my life. It always has been. Thank you so much to my mom for introducing me to tap dance, and I'm so excited that I'm actually getting the opportunity to implement that form of dance over here in Armenia, because it's so different. You would never see kids, especially in rural communities, let alone doing tap dance. So it's such a unique opportunity for those kids to take part in that form of dance, but it's also really fun for me just to share that part of me. And so the way we've been doing it thus far is I have classes, a couple days a week, and I was fortunate enough that when I was home during Christmas, people, oh, so kind of you guys, by the way, donated tap shoes, and I brought them back with me, and we've been using these used tap shoes for a while. And I'm happy to report that once this funding comes through, we're actually going to be partnering with a local shoemaker who is going to make tap shoes, and we're going to have a whole new brand new set of about 10 to 15 tap shoes for our kids who are participating while still utilizing those used pairs, because we're hoping that the program continues to grow from what it's currently at, so that in the future we have to write another grant because it's such a successful program. And with that being said, I'm going to be renovating the dance school on top of just introducing and like establishing this tap dance program. So we're installing a student locker system with keys so that the kids have a safe space to store all their things. building the sliding door system, kind of like closets, and so those doors will slide open and shut, giving the kids more privacy from the current open room changing spaces that are in the waiting room, as weird as that sounds. So we're installing that, and then we're also creating a completely brand new studio dance space right next to our current dance space. We're going to have wall-length mirrors, and we're going to have a music stereo system so that the kids have, two separate dance practice spaces, and that is going to be designated space for the tap dance program. So that alone just gives these kids more room to dance, and the acoustics are so much better compared to the carpeted dance studio one that we currently have. So I'm really excited for the kids to have that opportunity. So again, like I can't say how excited I am. I have had such a hard time implementing or trying to get this project started, and finally things are starting to go really well with it, and I'm really excited just to start implementing. Just about a week ago, we had brand new volunteers arrive here in Armenia, which is, it's awesome. I'm so excited for them, but it's really sad too, because that means the group that came before my group, they're starting to close out their service. They have only about 2 months left, and then they're all going to be either heading back to the United States to go to grad school to start, their actual careers, or, some of them are actually going to continue to travel for a little bit, which I think is awesome. But it's really, it's sad just in the fact that, we've made these really fun connections over the past year of service, and it's going to be, it's like anything when you meet people abroad, it's really hard to say goodbye. But there's definitely a group of them that I hope that we keep in touch in the future, because I think they're just incredible people, and I wish nothing but the best for them. And with that, and also with the new volunteers coming, that also means that I've been here in Armenia for a year. And on Facebook, on the whole time hop thing, or memories, I think is what it's called, it was showing me pictures from when I did arrive in Armenia for the first time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that it's been a year. Time seriously flies. It's absolutely incredible. And I'm looking back and reflecting on my first year of service, and there's parts where sometimes I feel like I just didn't do anything. And then there's other things that I've done where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. And yeah, I'm kind of lost for words, because it just doesn't feel like it's been a year. And then this whole new group, I actually got the opportunity to meet them their very first week in country, because I was doing this resource volunteer position where I had the opportunity to go to their training and actually be a facilitator for 2 different trainings on culture. We talked about living with host families. As you guys know, I'm currently living with a host family here in country. And then also just general Armenian culture. And it was super fun to get to do that, because one, I get to practice, my facilitation skills and work with different individuals who work for Peace Corps out of the Yerevan headquarters that I usually wouldn't get the opportunity to work with. And then also, it was just really fun getting to know the new volunteers before their service. So, that was a blast, and that was something that I had going on this previous week. And then April, oh my gosh, talking about, year one, I think April, the upcoming month, is going to just be the busiest month that I've had in country, which is really hard to believe, but I'm actually going to be away from site for about a third of the month. So coming up, I am heading to Yerevan again. I talked about this in the past. I'm doing this program called Border to Border, where we hike across the country, stopping in rural communities and teaching about, various topics. And this year's topic is about environmental awareness and micro topics that kind of surround that. But I have a meeting in Yerevan coming up with someone who's helping me out with planning my route. I'm also doing more work with Goals, the Girls of Armenian Leadership Soccer, which in the future I will actually do a special on, so I won't get too much into them. But Goals does leadership and skill training opportunities for female youth, and then also implements girls-only leagues across the country. So, and if you're interested in that, just in my little blurb that I've given, I'll actually shoot a link about goals so you can look more up. So I've got meetings with both border-to-border goals coming up, and then I also have a second resource volunteer training coming up in the middle of the month. So I'll get to interact with our new volunteers a little bit more then. And then in between those two, I'm going to actually head up to Gyumri, the second largest city in Armenia, to help out with this poetry competition where kids are going to recite English poetry. And it's a big national competition, and the winners from that get to compete in the national competition in Yerevan, I believe, later sometime in May. So I'm helping out with that. And then finally, again, a border-to-border thing. We're getting to the point where we have to start actually hiking part of our routes to see if trails are there, because unfortunately in Armenia there isn't a lot of like pre-hiked trails. So I actually, poor me, I get to go hike for a couple of days to see if there's trails out there. But it's gonna be super fun, right? So that's kind of a really quick blurb about all the things that I have going on, and it's crazy. It sounds like a lot, but if you know me, like that's how I like to live. I like to keep my life busy. Things always going on. For me, it's always better to have too much than not enough. I'm not much of a, stay at home and relax kind of guy. I like to be out and doing things. So, that's what I got going on. So, like I said, this is the first podcast that I'm doing of just me. I'm not going to be interviewing people, and the things that we're going to be talking about today, our theme is going to be how to get the most out of your travels. And, people who I know who maybe aren't as well traveled or had quite of a diverse experience of traveling as I have, always ask me like, Matt, like, how do you do it? And like, what are things that you always do that, make these travels fun? So I'm actually going to give you guys my, 5 travel tips. And obviously, like, these are the things that I do that work for me, but, and maybe they don't work for you, or maybe you have a different list of things that you really prefer to do when you're traveling. But today we're talking about how to get the most out of your travels. And I'm going to be covering that with my 5 travel tips for when you're traveling abroad. So sit back, relax, and thank you so much. Once again, I can't say it enough. Thank you so much once again for joining me for another edition of the Where in the World podcast. All right, so today we are talking about how to get the most out of your travels, and I'm going to be giving you guys my top 5 travel tips list on ways that I personally get the most out of my travel experiences. So if you want to go ahead, grab a pen and piece of paper. Now is a great time to do so. You can kind of jot them down as I'm talking about these different travel tips. If not, down in my video summary section, you'll be able to find these travel tips, but not in quite as depth information. I'll just kind of list them out for you. So to kick it off, I'm going to start at number 5. And my number 5 travel tip is embrace the unknown. And some people, and I know this is probably the most controversial one, so it's funny that I start my list off this way, but this is just something that I personally do, and I find that I get the most out of my travels by doing it, is by embracing the unknown. So generally, when I'm traveling and I'm picking either just an individual new country to go to, or in the past, what's been more typical for me is to really quick hit a lot of different countries. I don't generally like to research those countries too much that I'm going to be going to. And I know that probably would freak a lot of people out, but hear me out. So I find that when I arrive in a new country and I really haven't done a whole lot of research on it, I'm not too well informed on what's going on. Um, I I just personally find that I enjoy myself a lot more, and I feel like I'm coming in with just a more open mind and really able to just take in what I'm experiencing in the moment. I'm able to just my generated opinion of a country is coming from my personal experiences within that country rather than, things that have been reported on it or the other experiences that people have had and have then gone on to create, different blogs or vlogs or whatever about that country. So for me personally, I just really like getting into a country with an open mind, not knowing much about it. And then when I get there, I really like to just sit down, kind of talk with locals, see, what are the things that they really like to do or that they personally enjoy, and then go out and do them that way because I feel like I get more out of it. I don't know really how else to put it. And then I know that this one won't work for everyone because I know there's people who really like to prepare, or let's say you're on a time crunch and there, you've known of something that you really want to do. You're trying to schedule your entire trip around making sure that one thing gets accomplished. But for those people, I'm going to challenge you the next time that you're planning to go to a new country or to, not even a new country, if you're going to a new place, let's say in the United States, maybe try not to do a lot of research on it and just go because it's there. That place is there, but you're not going to find everything that you're looking for on the internet. And I think maybe you won't, but I'm going to take a guess that maybe you'll have a way better time at this place just doing things spontaneously and just taking the word of locals on what to do. Because for me in the past, I've had a lot more fun. And that's not something I started right off the bat. I used to do my research, really try to figure out what I wanted to do when I got to that country and just start, kind of quick hit all of these different things. But then my traveling became more of a checklist rather than an experience. And traveling should, in my opinion, should just be an experience, and it should be something that's rememberable. And especially when you don't know what's going on, I think you're just putting yourself in this brand new mindset that everything is so exciting and new that it's going to create way better memories for you. So my number 5 is to embrace the unknown. Number 4, put the camera down. And that can be like a 2-part one. So I'll say put the camera down or put the cell phone down, because I know, especially with new technology, a lot of people are traveling anymore without cameras because, like the new iPhones or Samsungs or whatever you have, they honestly have really good HD quality cameras. But I challenge you that when you get to a new place to just live in the moment. I can personally say that some of the, best stories that I can tell from my experiences don't have a photo to go with them. And I know for some people, especially for and I get it. Like I have friends who love cameras. So especially for those people who love cameras, love to take pictures and show other people, what's around the world or what's around their own country or whatever. This can definitely be a hard one. And especially if, you're a photographer and you're making money from those photos, right? And that's something that you have to do. But if this is something that's going to be really hard for you, maybe don't make it your entire experience of not taking photos. Obviously, that's crazy. I love to take photos and show people, the beauty of new places. But try to maybe schedule time. Like when you're somewhere new, maybe this is a good idea. Maybe just like schedule an hour within your day. And I think anyone can do that, right? So just schedule an hour where you're going to say, you know what? I'm not going to touch my camera. I'm not going to fiddle with my phone. And I'm just going to, take it all in, right? Like I said, some of the best experiences that I've had when traveling abroad don't have a photo to go with them. And the reason for that is because I was living in that moment. I wasn't living behind a screen, trying to get that perfect photo so I could go home and show all my friends or post it on Instagram or whatever. It just made it such a, a greater experience for me. Like let me give an example. I've had so many different conversations abroad with locals in various countries that have talked to me about, different like political standings or opinions of the general population, or literally just about themselves and like things that they like to do. And never once have I pulled out a camera and asked them to either take a photo with me, or asked them if I could get, like a portrait shot of them, because for me, like, that is like the way, like the quickest way to really kill that moment and to destroy like that conversation and like the fluency of it, right? Like, I don't know. I feel weird just pulling out my camera. Maybe you're not like me in that sense, but I feel weird just pulling out my camera and trying to capture, pictures at any given moment. So when I've been traveling and I haven't done that, like I said, I've just had awesome experiences, and the details that I can share with people about different stories when I get to talking about some of my travel experiences. They're just, they're way more enjoyable for people to listen to, because I was really, hypersensitive and aware of what was going around me, and I could really describe like those sights and smells of that given location. So like, that's probably a really big one that I think could challenge people. So number 4 again is to put the camera down. Number 3, collect something. I have a lot of friends who like to do collections of things, even just in the States. Some people like collect, stamps, postcards, rocks, I think is becoming actually a pretty popular one. And for me, I've really gotten into this whole collecting something idea, because I think it creates this fun connection between different countries. But it also gives you this solid material object that you can really relate to a place that you've been in the past, right? So things that I collect whenever I'm traveling, and some people are like, well, how do you fit it in like your suitcase or stuff? But things that I always collect is paintings. And the way that I do that is I never buy a painting in its frame and it's never stretched. I always buy it right on the canvas, so that way it can be rolled up. It's flexible. It's something that doesn't take up a ton of room. And especially like with art for me, just like, if you're trying to like come home and show people places that you've been, I don't think that there is a better way to demonstrate that visually than with a piece of art. And generally what I've done in the past is I'm not going to stores looking to buy art. Nor am I like looking for something specific within an art piece. But generally what I do is, pretty much anywhere that you go, especially in like the higher tourist like seasons, you're going to see a lot of street artists out and about. And that's a lot of the times their only forms of income is making money off of their art. And I just find that for some reason, for me, I gain this greater connection with a person who's like in that type of setting when they're doing something you can truly tell that they love. Out in public, you're seeing the art created a lot of the times right in front of your eyes. And it's like the imperfections of some of those artworks that really grab me. So here's an example. When I was in Ghana during my fall 2017 voyage with the semester at sea, I met this absolutely incredible dude. His name was, or he told me his name was Elvis. And Elvis was such an incredible local from the Across City. And he loved to paint, but painting wasn't really cutting it for him financially. And he had to have, 2 or 3 different jobs on top of it. But that was truly his passion. And he had, in my opinion, probably one of the most beautiful artworks that I ever bought. And at the same time, it was just the most simple one. And it was this, kind of shadow-like figure pushing a cart full of hay and food and stuff, going to a couple of different huts off in the distance. And it was, the scenery was dark. So it was a very, black and white with very minimal color within this very large canvas piece. And the whole meaning behind it was no food for lazy man. And if you've ever been to Ghana, the locals will, I mean, that's like, it's just such a favorite saying amongst the locals because a lot of people are affected by the poverty within the country. And, you know, everyone is very happy to help one another, but you have to also give something in return for that help that people are being provided. So that's why they always say no food for lazy man, because everyone kind of does their part to support one another and to create this community style of culture. And I mean, throughout my experiences, you know, like I talked about, embracing the unknown and putting my camera down, I I was really living in the moment when I was in Ghana and didn't capture a ton of photos. And all of the experiences that I had, there was like an underlying theme of how hospitable all of these people were in Ghana. And then, you know, on the last day in country before our ship left to go on to the next port, um, Elvis and I sat down. We got to talking. He showed me this work that he was so proud of, and that was just the image. You know, I couldn't think of a greater image to demonstrate kind of my experiences and interactions with the people of Ghana. And even though it was such a simple piece, it was something that really called to me. And the cool thing about art on top of that is like when I bring it back and I get it framed at like my local Hobby Lobby or some other store, um, in the future, if I ever have my own place and I have a place to put my things, because right now a lot of my art kind of sits and collects a little dust at my mom's apartment back home in the States. But in the future, if I ever do have my own space, like that's gonna just create this really cool environment within my own home, and I can look back and see and just, you know, reminisce on a lot of the good memories that I've had of traveling, especially that I've done in my early years of life. So number three is to collect something. I think it will just, you know, it gives you something in the future to really look back on, and you're gonna. I think generally you're gonna have a memory of purchasing something in country. Number two, eat like a local. Um, if any of you like watching like the Food Network, or you know, I know people who think like this. I think food is honestly one of the best ways to get to know a country, because like every country has like their unique cuisine, and it's so different from the next. So I think, you know, eating local foods is going to give you just such this great experience. Um, and for me, for the longest time, it was hard. I'm not gonna lie. I was a super picky eater when I first got to traveling, and trying new foods was difficult because I, you know, I wanted to stick to what I knew. I knew that I would like it, and also, like in a lot of cases, I knew I wasn't gonna get sick. Um, but eventually, down the line, I kind of realized um, the culture, especially in a lot of different cultures, you'll notice that like that meal times are such an important part of the day, and there's always some form of ritual or traditions that kind of go behind the serving and eating of food. And getting to like really experience that has made my traveling so much more fun. So like one time when I was in Senegal, and I had gone to this home of it was like a brotherhood of men, and they were all, you know, doing it was, how do I explain it? It's not like a monastery, but like it was a brotherhood. They all had a connection of religion and spent a lot of their days praying. Uh, and then like meal times were a very sacred and holy type of event for them. And I had the opportunity to sit in and actually share a meal with this group of individuals. And the way that their serving went was they would make just, you know, a dish, and they would throw so much in it. So it kind of reminded me of like paella from Spain, where, you know, the primary substance was rice, because rice is really cheap and easy to acquire in a lot of these foreign countries. So rice was in it. And then, you know, a ton of vegetables. They love their spices, so there's a lot of spices in it. And it was just like this huge, like, I don't know, like a drum almost of food. And this house that they lived in didn't have furniture. It was all like carpets and carpets, rugs, pillows on the floor, and your entire day is kind of just spent connected to that like main space, especially the living room, quote unquote, area. Um, so they cook up this giant drum, and they bring it in and they sit it in the middle of the room, and then everyone comes around and sits around this big drum of just like rice and vegetables and spices, and they each have their own plate. So they're all each given their own plate, but they don't use utensils. They're not using a fork. They're not using a spoon. They're using their hands. So first, what you have to clean your hands, obviously, because everyone's going to be eating from this same thing. So everyone goes around and kind of does their washing of the hands, and then a prayer is said to bless the food. And then instead of like serving the food to your plate, what you do is you just hold the plate under your mouth to kind of catch some of the food droppings that come. But you eat with your right hand. So you're holding the plate with your left hand underneath your mouth, and then going into the drum with your right hand, and you're going to kind of form a ball, and you're going to squish the food together. That way it sticks. And then you're going to eat the food directly from your hand, like I said, and then the plate is there to kind of catch the droppings. But you're eating from there, and then you continue just to keep going in, and everyone kind of within this drum has their own little like designated area, I'd say, where they're kind of eating from. And again, like it's so different. It's something you'd never see in the States, right? And it was just such a fun experience. And on top of that, just like the conversations that get started because everyone's sitting that close together, eating from essentially the same dish. It was a lot of fun, and I have a really good memory, and I have plenty of other experiences of like where food was connected to people. I've done host stays where like the families have made food for me, or even here in Armenia, like the food culture is so different in the way that it goes about of preparing and the table placement. So like, yeah, I would just say really try to get outside of your comfort zone, especially when it comes to foods. Obviously, like if you have allergies to different things, you have to be very cautious of that, right? So I'm not saying to challenge any of that, but really try to recognize how important in a lot of different countries the food culture is, because I think sometimes food is really taken for granted, especially in the United States, because it's so easy to acquire. So number 2 is to eat like a local. And then my number 1 tip, and this one's kind of up for interpretation, right? But my number 1 tip is do something crazy. And when I say do something crazy, again, like I said, like that is totally up for interpretation. But what I really mean by do something crazy is just to like step out of your comfort zone. And that's kind of been the underlying theme of a lot of the different tips, is like just do something that you normally wouldn't do in this, in your home country, and do it in a different country, because in the end, when you come back home, when you've had that experience abroad in a new place, like you're always going to have that memory. And like, I think that's the one thing that I've been able to do, in every country that I've done. I've always challenged myself to do something new, and I'm always going to have those memories within a country. So I always got like one thing that I did connected to that country, and it's created such a fun experience. Just some like large examples. Like I've done a camel trek through the Moroccan, I've done a camel trek through the Sahara Desert. I did a riverboat cruise through the Amazon. I've gone skydiving in South Africa. I mean, it's just like the list goes on of like really, weird things that I wouldn't get to do back home that I do when I'm abroad. And the reason, like I said, like I do that is it creates this memory, and I'm always going to have that memory of that place. Kind of an underlying theme, and that maybe this is something that works for you, kind of like a collection, is maybe you want to try to do something similar in a lot of different countries, right? Because then you're creating this connection to different places that you've been while also doing something that's kind of outside of the box. So let me give you an example. It wasn't something that when I started traveling that I was like, yeah, that's something I want to do, but it just like opportunities started coming up, and it became an easier thing for me to do when I was abroad. And it's created like this fun challenge for me in a lot of different ways. And that is when I'm abroad in a lot of different countries, I've made a habit of running half marathons. And running half marathons was something that I've never been interested to do in the States, but it's been something that when I'm traveling, it's been a really fun challenge for me. And it also gives me something like really, just like unique to do. For one, when you're traveling, I think a lot of people are very focused on going, and doing things that we kind of forget to take care of ourselves. And running is something that, for me, I mean, it has great health benefits, right? But it's also something that I enjoy doing back in the States. So being able to do that in a different place kind of creates this like, I don't know, it's just fun. I get to meet new people doing it. Everyone is always super supportive and interested to meet me when I come to some of those events because a lot of times I'm the only American showing up to doing a half marathon, let's say in Japan, in Tokyo, or I recently did one in Yerevan back in October. So it was like, people just always take notice when the American is there and they're like, what the heck are you doing here? Especially running a half marathon. And then it creates this really cool theme now that like when I travel, I'm kind of keeping my eye out or like researching on different opportunities for me to run, but specifically half marathons because it's just like a really fun distance and it creates this really unique opportunity because when I'm running, I'm very observant of my surroundings. So I get to maybe see parts of a city or parts of a countryside that I wouldn't have gotten to see if I was just doing traditional like, tourist type of travel. So that is something that I do. But also like those bigger trips, like I said before, like those always give me a really fun story to bring back. So number one tip for all of you is to do something crazy and that is whatever is within your means of accessibility or like however you want to interpret it. So to kind of run through them again, these are the 5 things that I try to do every time I'm traveling. And maybe not all of them will work for you, but maybe it gives you an idea to try something different. So, number 5, embrace the unknown. Number 4, put the camera down. Number 3, collect something. Number 2, eat like a local. And number 1, do something crazy. So, hopefully, all of you listening to this podcast can maybe find some use out of this list that I've created. And I'd love to hear what are maybe some of your travel tips that you have for people, because obviously I'm not a pro. I'm not the pro in the room. These are just the things that work for me. So I would love to get a fun conversation started, and that kind of goes along with our theme of how do you get the most out of your travels. So definitely, I always say this every episode, guys, and I love when you take the opportunity and take advantage to doing this. Write me a personal message on Facebook to my Where in the World Is Matt page, or shoot me an email to whereintheworldismatt@hotmail.com. But I love to hear from you guys about like these different themes. So like, again, how do you get the most out of your travels? Let me know maybe what are some travel tips of yours, or what is something that you always do in every country, but like how do you personally accomplish that? I want to hear that, and I want to definitely share that with people, especially when I get to meeting new people. And it also gives me, a way to kind of interpret different places and maybe give me some new ideas of what I can do when I'm traveling. So again, how do you get the most out of your travels? I can't say it enough. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Like I said, it was just me this week, and it was challenging, right? It's easy when I'm just the person who's interviewing, and the other people get to talk. So I really got to sit in their shoes, or no, that's not right. I got to sit in their chair. Yeah, I got to sit in their chair this week and be the one talking with all of you. So again, like we kind of recap. We've talked about things that I have going on. And if you ever want to know more, again, shoot me an email, send me a Facebook message. Love to hear from you guys. Love to talk more. But we've recapped things I have going on here in country, my busy month coming up here in April, and then, the different travel tips that I have for you guys. So again, like, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to this, to give me the opportunity to share my experiences abroad with all of you, and for letting me into your ears. And I'm just looking forward again to like creating more content for all of you. It's so exciting to see people actually viewing it and interacting with the material that I'm creating. So thank you so much for that. It's definitely been an inspiration to me, for sure. So I'll see you guys again in, I guess it'll be May. Holy cow. But yeah, I'll see you guys again in May. And hopefully I'll have a lot more new things to talk about. And we might, maybe we'll have a new guest interview on May's episode. So I guess you'll have to just like check it out when it comes out. But I hope you all have a amazing April. Spring is starting to finally sprung here in Armenia, and I'm hoping it's the same in the States for all of you. So until next time, this has been the Where in the World podcast. So see you again.